Thompson, and I'm a vet, and this is the Gut Doctor, and we are going to be discussing anthelmintic resistance, which is a posh way of saying that worms, like bacteria, are developing mechanisms whereby they are able to evade the pharmaceutical drugs that we use, that are routinely used to kill those worms or those bacteria. Okay, yeah, if you've got a bacterial infection, you use an antibiotic in order to kill the bacteria so that you don't die of sepsis. If you've got a worm burden, and when I say you, I mean your dog, your cat, your horse, your sheep, what have you. Okay, but I'm going to say you for the whole talk. Everybody knows about bacterial resistance because you hear about it when you go to see a GP and these kind of things. But there is creeping resistance to the drugs we use in order to keep our animals healthy with the pharmaceutical approach, the drug approach to worms. And this is a big deal because we can envisage in the future a time where there may not be any drugs that one can use for your cat, your dog, your horse, your sheep, and what have you. But what happens if your child gets worms and there are no drugs available? This is a really, 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 really big deal. I'm going to tell you about that within the talk. Lots of people coming on, and so I'll give them another minute for the troops to amass, and just say, here we are. It is dark and it is October, and took the dogs out this morning and it was absolutely miserable. It was raining and howling. It was kind of refreshing and quite nice actually, but the weather is changing and it's certainly autumnal. We're here just near Bath in England. If you're from miles away, do shout, do say. This show is going to be going out on YouTube. It's going out on the Vermex website, and it's also going out on my personal business Facebook. Okay, so business Facebook is Holistic Vet Limited, and Vermex is, you just go to the Vermex Verm-X page on Facebook, and within YouTube the my page is called Holistic Vet UK. So if you just look those up, you'll be able to see them again. And the reason I'm saying is because I'm going to go through quite a lot of slides today. Usually I try and keep it to about 10, but this is such a big topic that there's quite a lot to pack in. So we're going to go through those things. If you want to see the show again, so you can stop the slides as we go along, you're welcome to do that when you look at the recording of the show. I hope you're really well wherever you may be. We have a lot of people from the United States. We have people from Australia, people from all over Europe, and of course back in Blighty and in Ireland, and Scotland and Wales and all countries of the United Kingdom. So greetings to you all. Hope you're all well, and I hope your animals are in great shape. Stephanie Tom is joining us, and good evening, Stephanie. Great to see you there. I'm going to jump in, guys, because we've got quite a lot to go through. This is one of my favorite talks to give. I started looking into it and was shocked at just how terrifying the prospect of anthelmintic wormer resistance is, and how it is marching apace around the world. And this really is something that we need to make sure that we are keeping a really close eye on, and doing everything we can to reduce our use of chemical pharmaceutical wormers, because they by definition will induce resistance. Okay, I'm going to go through that shortly. Ellie has done some fabulous graphics, which I think make it really obvious how the whole resistance thing works. Okay, so bear with me, and I'll show you some really nice graphics. So let's do the thing. Laura is there and watching over us. Evening, Laura. And she's going to say that she can see and hear things. So I'm going to do the thing. I'm going to go down in the corner here, and then I'm going to go over to the show. When I'm in the show, I can't see you and I can't see your questions. But if you do have any questions as we go along, if you put them in the chat at the side, we can go through those at the end. No problem at all. So I'm going to go into the show, and Laura is going to. Here we go. So I've called the talk Parasitic Worm Resistance to Anthelmintics. Again, that's a posh way of saying the more drugs you use on worms, the more they become resistant to those drugs. That is to say, those drugs don't work to do what they're supposed to do. Okay, so therefore it's inherent on us to use them as little as possible. I'm not anti-wormer, but if we've got herbs, for example, that we can use in order to lighten the load on our drugs, then why would we not use those herbs? Okay, they're effective, they're safe, they're very gentle, but they're very effective. So Laura's given us the thumbs up, so we're good to go. You can hear me, you can see my pretty slides. Sorry about that as the first one. If you're a bit squeamish about worms, this might not be the talk for you, although that's probably the worst slide that I've got. So if you can cope with that, you'll cope with all the rest of the slides that we're going to be looking at. It's not that terrible, and if you've been watching this show, you will have seen a lot worse. So hang in there, and we're in good shape. Okay, so we're going to be facing up to anthelmintic resistance, and seeing what we can do about this problem of worms becoming resistant to the drugs, essentially. Okay, so if we just sketch the problem itself, what I'm trying to say is that all human and animal dewormers face rapidly developing resistance, he says, reading from the slide, which is very boring, I realise, but I just really want to lay down some foundations so that we're all on the same page. So drugs are becoming less effective in the animal world, in production animals, for beef animals, lambs, in entertainment animals, if you like, horses, but also in our cats and dogs and in humans. Okay, and so that's why this is such a big deal. If you've got an issue and there ain't no drugs to address that issue, you're in a pickle, to say the least. We're just going to define some terms initially. So a helminth is a posh way to say a worm, okay? And therefore an anthelmintic, as the name suggests, is something that's anti-helminth, anti-worm. It's a wormer, basically. It's something that kills or immobilizes worms so that they're able to be passed out. And it is similar to bacteria are things that we know all about, and an antibiotic is the drug that has been discovered which knock out the bacteria. Okay, so there is a parallel between those two things, and resistance is where you use a drug and the bacterium or the worm just sits there and waves at you saying, I'm resistant, you can't kill me. Okay, big deal. Why are they bad? I've kind of hinted at this because when we see parasitic disease, and in the West, in Europe and in America and in Australia and places, we don't see too much of these things because we live in a very clean environment, arguably too clean. But there are parts of the world where parasites are a major problem, mostly in immunosuppressed adults and children and in the elderly. But they are still a significant problem. 40% of children, even in the West, will get worms before the age of about 12. Okay, so worms are an issue, and they can cause local problems. You can get visceral migrating problems, for example, in the eye with certain types of worms, which is horrendous, pretty rare, but you can see that. Or you can get systemic problems. There's a disease called elephantiasis, where there's a worm which lives in the lymphatics and causes your legs to go like this, and is a real problem in sub-Saharan Africa, for example. So if we can keep drugs or other means to help people and production animals to thrive, then that has to be a good thing. So let's look at resistance. What is what actually is resistance? So I've chosen a horse because they're bigger, because we've got part of the graphic is showing you worms and bacteria inside a body. So if you haven't got a horse, doesn't matter. Pretend it's a dog. Okay, so here we have a person, and here we have a horse. Okay, and what we've done is we are going to use bacteria as an example to teach you about infection and the resistance of that infection to the drugs that we use to try and kill that infection. Okay, so let's talk about antibiotics to start with, because it's easier to understand, and then we'll take those ideas and we'll just morph them identically onto worms. Okay, because it's the same system. So here we are. We've got Fred and we've got Dobbin, and they, as you know, have bacteria in their gut, for example. Okay, you have them, horses have them, dogs and cats have them, etc., etc. Okay, and some of the bacteria in you and in your horse or dog are resistant to drugs. And if everything is in equilibrium in the human or the animal, then that's fine. Yeah, because they act, the bacteria act exactly like those bacteria which are not resistant to antibiotics. Okay, so you've got this population, and some of them have this little superpower. And so with bacterial infections, as is commonly used, you would take an antibiotic if you developed a gut infection, for example, or your horse developed a gut infection. Okay, so you take an antibiotic. Okay, and that, by definition, you see, that's so you see the total population. You use an antibiotic, and lo and behold, you kill all but the bacteria that have resistant to the drug that you have chosen, the antibiotic that you have chosen. Okay, it is as simple as that. Okay, and the graphic, I think, shows it. So therefore, you are left with a residue of some bacteria which are resistant. And what do bacteria do? Bacteria are very good, given the right conditions. They're very good at multiplying. Again, fabulous graphics, aren't they? Thank you, Ellie. Brilliant. And that's how it works. And that's how a stray gene in 1 in a trillion bacteria becomes more and more prevalent in a population, in a human population, in a horse population, in a bacterial population, because all the weaker, as it were, bacteria are killed by the drug, and therefore the strong guys are left and they thrive. Okay, and therefore you've got this population, super population, which have the resistant to that drug. So if you use that drug again, if that antibiotic again, it's not going to work because they all have this superpower. So let's morph that onto worms. Okay, so here we have Fred and we have Dobbin, and they have a low level of normal worms within them, which is not so unusual. Okay, bear with me. This is just for an example. We could talk about normal levels of worms and not, but that's for another time. So we have a mixed population of worms within Fred and a mixed population within Dobbin, and we would use an anthelmintic dewormer here, okay, because antibiotics don't do anything for worms, obviously. Yeah, you use a wormer for worms. And we give Fred and we give Dobbin the wormer. And what does it do? By definition, it knocks out all those worms which are susceptible to the wormer, just like with the antibiotic. Okay, you can see why I use the antibiotic as an example. Okay, and so what happens? Those worms which are left, they have the free run of the gut, and they're able to multiply so that there are more of them. And in exactly the same way, this is how more and more and more worms are becoming resistant to the drugs that we routinely use to knock out worms. That's what's happening as we speak. All around the world, every second, there are anthelmintics, wormers being given, which are killing the susceptible worm population, allowing the resistant population to thrive. Okay, we are actually creating that with this pharmaceutical paradigm that we live in. Okay, let's just have a look at just how bad resistance can be. We'll use bacteria as an example. Okay, so this is a graphic. He says, reaching for his pencil. Not that you can see me pointing at the screen, but so the first antibiotic that was discovered by Alexander Fleming was in 1928. That went into production it was in major production in 1944 for D-Day, but even before it went into major production, see, in 1941, in pink there was noted resistance to penicillin. Yeah, just within a few decades of, so what's that, 28, 38. So within 13 years, the investigators were noticing that penicillin, there were some bacteria that penicillin couldn't kill. And so they invented sulfonamides. And that was 10 years before resistance was noted. And so they thought, crumbs. And they invented aminoglycosides. And that was 4 years until there was resistance. La, 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 la. And so it goes. Okay. And it is inevitable that when you invent a new antibiotic or anthelmintic, that there will be resistance in a fairly short time. Okay. This is Cameron, and he got very hot under the collar about it, rightly so. And he said, if we fail to act, we are looking at an almost unthinkable scenario where antibiotics no longer work, and we are cast back into the dark ages of medicine, where people die of a scratch to the arm, a scratch to the leg, these kind of things. Okay, so he's talking about antibiotic resistance, but remember, we're using it as a parallel for anthelmintic resistance. One of his key advisors at the time, and I can't believe it's 10 years ago now, one of his key advisors was Jim O'Neill, and Jim O'Neill's famous quote here was, 1 million people have died while we have been doing this review. They took 2-3 years to do the antimicrobial resistance report, and while they did that report, 1 million people died of bacterial infections that were no longer susceptible to antibiotics. Horrendous. Things have moved on. I'll show you some current papers which pertain to dogs. Even the BBC got in on the news when they were commenting on the review of antimicrobial resistance, and they were saying that the global cost of the problem could be a loss of 10 million lives a year by 2050, or could cost the planet 100 trillion. This is antibacterial resistance. Okay, it's a big deal, antibiotic resistance, as described the WHO, as the single greatest challenge to infectious disease today. Okay, big deal. That's what I'm trying to get across here. So that's a very simple run through what resistance is and how big an issue it is. So those were some quotes from 10 years ago. Here's some much more up-to-date scientific papers showing you that the resistance is ongoing around the world. Okay, so this is a 24 paper and talking about hookworm hookworm resistance to wormers, and that's not the first paper, but it's quite the title of the paper was just very explicit, so I thought that was quite a useful one there. Here's another one talking about resistance in dogs in Portugal. Yeah, this one here, we are interested in resistance to for humans and children and what have you, but in the gut doctor we talk about animals, so we're going to talk about animals here. Okay, so this is a paper looking at hookworm resistance in dogs. This one is the same, looking at worm resistance to wormers in Portugal, and here's another paper doing the same in Quebec in Canada. If anybody's from Canada, greetings. Who's watching? Yeah, greetings to you. So it's around the world. We are able to measure it, and we are able to demonstrate that resistance is a major issue. What can we do about it? And the answer is, and you knew I was going to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway, is that if we lean heavily on herbal products in order to reduce the pressure to use pharmaceutical products, things like Vermex, and thank you very much for Vermex allowing me the time to be able to put this presentation together for you. Great bunch at Vermex. I feel morally obliged to advise the use of herbs whenever possible. I'm not anti-drug wormer. I do feel morally obliged to use herbs as much as possible and drugs as little as possible. Okay, because the beauty of herbs is that because they attack, any given herb has 400 to 600 different molecules within it, and so they can attack a worm from many different directions, and therefore it's impossible for any given worm to be resistant to the effects of that herb. And when you put, as with Vermex, you put a variety of herbs together, that increases this effect, this entourage effect. Because let's say you just used one herb, for example, quassia. Quassia is within Vermex. If you use that, then it's very unlikely that the herb is going to the worm is going to develop a resistance to 400 elements within quassia. But then you use mint, and you'll use other herbs along with the quassia to cause this entourage effect, and so it is getting into the realms of impossible for worms to be resistant to that blend of herbs that we find, for example, in Vermex. Okay, so essentially what we're saying is if you use herbs, you cannot induce resistance, which is a very strong position in this day and age. So here's an example of some of the, and this is basically, don't look at the science, just wow at the complexity of the molecules. These are all molecules that we find in common herbs which have anti-parasitic activity. Okay, and that is just a drop in the ocean of all the active ingredients within the herbs that we use. Okay, you can see the herbs on the shelves behind me here. So there's a lot going in within our herbal products. Okay, so I think we should maximize our use of herbs and minimize our use of pharmaceuticals. Personally, with our dogs, we are using a Vermex, which is a herbal product to restore and maintain gut vitality. And what we do is we will send periodic poo samples off to a lab, and Vermex do a package there, where you send a poo sample off, and you are then therefore able to check whether there are any worms in that animal, and so you can therefore monitor that your intestinal hygiene regime is effective. Okay, I like to go with the belt and braces approach, and rather than just use nothing and do the worm counts every 3 months or so, I like to use Vermex and do the worm counts every 3 months or so. You can find these products and the testing kits and things on Vermex, verm-x.com website. Jump onto that if you're interested. Again, I think we should. Yeah, that's my personal opinion. Have a chat with your vet. They may have another opinion on the use of pharmaceuticals, possibly. So there you go, guys. I'm trying to keep it as what would you say, as digestible a message as possible, as concise and as simple a message as possible, because of the importance of it. And I hope I've managed to get that across today. So, yeah, as I say, no, I didn't even say the Vermex. We use the crunchies. Yeah, it's just basically like a treat, but it has this effect. And also, we will use the liquid. Okay, the crunchies are a daily thing, and the liquid is used 3 days each month. So the first, second, and third of each month. Dead easy, and that's a very economic way to use the Vermex herb blend. So all good, very easy. Dogs will tolerate it very, very, very well. Okay, good. So we're done. I'm going to come back to you to say hi to everybody. Hello to Tracy and Diane and Sheila and everybody. Diane's in Canada. This is good. And Jane. Actually, Jane, that reminds me. Saw Jane on here. She's Jane Istwith. And she came out to Mallorca over the weekend to the Raw Feeding Veterinary Society annual conference. And it just happened to be very sunny in Mallorca. We were lucky because there was a torrential rain on the first day when some of the guys arrived the day before, and they had torrential rain, but it was good for us. But more important than sunny weather in a nice place is we had some fantastic speakers: Peter Dobius, Rita Hogan, among a host of others. The Crazy Cat Ladies, check them out. They are absolutely brilliant. And Lise Hansen, yeah, some really, really brilliant speakers. If you want some details, have a look at Raw Feeding Veterinary Society, RFVS, R for Romeo, F for Freddie, V for Victor, S for Sugar, .info, rfvs.info. Jump onto that. Any support you can give us is very, very much appreciated. I'm going to be becoming the president again from November, and we're going to shake things up and really try and develop community. So please come and join us. We talk about raw feeding, natural feeding, fresh food feeding, and any holistic means to lift the health of the animals under our care. So you're very welcome to join us. Come and check it out and let us know. If you want more details of the Vermex products, then have a chat with the guys. They're a very friendly bunch at Vermex, and again, vermex-.com. You can check them out there. So Jane, greetings, and Jane says, and she used a natural product, grapefruit seed extract. That's brilliant. And Stephanie says, what do you say, Stephanie? Oh, hang on. Let me just get rid of that so that I can be bidding. Here we go. I remember Soil Station talking 2009, which was warning farmers back about worm resistance and the new chemical wormers. And that was, there have been very few, if any, new wormers and new antibiotics in the last decade. Okay, so that's the worrying thing. It's not like we can just say, oh, here's a new antibiotic. They are not really able to make them very easily at all. And Jane, I didn't pay her to say this. She genuinely said that. She uses Vermex and she likes those products. That's good. And she doesn't take prisoners, does our Jane. And so that's a very good, a good recommendation. And here she is talking about the Raw Feeding Veterinary Society. It's great. Good to see you, Jane. Last one here is Gail. What are you saying? I used to have worms for my horses 4 days with the full moon. Oh, very good. That's very advanced, but that's good. As I've been told that is when the worms are most active. Yes. And my ducks have been on Vermex daily and a worm test every 3 or 4 months. Gail, you get a gold star for that. And you also get a gold star for having a really fabulous picture. Have you seen? I'm not sure if you can see it, just down in that corner. Basically, she's got some grain or something in her hands, and it forms the shape of a heart. So clever old you. Love it. Very good. Gail, top of the class for creativity. Hayley says, hello, Hayley. Nice to see you. Let's have a look. Can I ask if Vermex is suitable for dogs that have had cancer? I know who you're talking about, Hayley. And yes, totally fine. I'd be a lot happier using a herbal product like Vermex with a dog that has had cancer than I would a pharmaceutical wormer, like Milbamax, Drontal, and what have you. So personally, I would say that's you're in good shape to use Vermex with somebody who has cancer. And Gail finally puts us out of our misery and says the heart in her hands is made of hemp seeds. Good for you, Gail. That's fabulous. We all really appreciate it. Okay, guys, amazing. I finished on time. That's a world record. And we are going to be back here. So Laura tells me on the 20th of November. Yeah. We've got a few topics that we can bring, and we're just going to see what's most topical in order to stay really current. We like to be way on the ball with all of these things. So if you've got any further suggestions, that's Paula. I'm not going to go for that, Paula, because we're going to go. But do email me, Paula, if you'd like to discuss things. Nick Thompson at holisticvet.co.uk. But what I'm saying is, if you've got a topic that's burning that you'd like us to do a deep dive on, then if you have a contact vermex.com, email them, and they will be able to line up those topics, and we'll choose one that seems to be popular so that we can cover a lot of ground in order to shed some light on these important topics. So that's great. That's November the 20th. The Gut Doctor will resume. We'll be back in this here seat and we will be talking to you. So I'm going to wish you all the very, very best. If you're watching this on repeat, fabulous. Well done you. That's great. Do what you can to minimize your use safely of pharmaceuticals. And in my book, that is the use of herbs. So fabulous. Great stuff. I'm going to go, guys. I'm going to go and cook some dinner. The children are on half term, so Dada is left to his own devices, unfortunately. There we go. So take care. See you on the 20th of November, and we'll go from there. Thanks a lot.